Mia Hanks had a rude awakening when she realized something just was not normal in her marriage. And the worst part was she could not see any way out. Narcissistic abuse is a bondage that has only recently been exposed as mental and physical abuse. And many listeners to the podcast today will be able to relate to Mia's amazing story of survival and ultimately escape.
Have you ever felt like giving up, quitting, throwing in the towel? Welcome to Never Ever Give Up Hope featuring Carol Graham. She's an author, health coach, and motivational speaker. Backed into a corner multiple times in her life, Carol shares with you stories on how she overcame some of the toughest obstacles a person can go through in life, but refused to give up hope. Rather than admit defeat, an opportunity was presented, and it involves each and every one of you. Carol will feature spectacular guests who will share their messages of hope, encouragement, and their inspiration to prove why life's adversities only make you stronger. And now, welcoming the host of the show, here's Carol Graham.
Narcissistic abuse is somewhat of an epidemic, and it seems that many victims don't know how to escape from it. Mia Hanks is an award-winning author who brings awareness to the struggles of those abused by a narcissist and offers hope to those who need direction. And this is what you are going to get out of this podcast today. And I really appreciate that she is going to not only bring hope to those who are struggling right now, but also some methods and helps on how to get a direction and what they should or shouldn't do. So welcome, Mia.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, Mia, the floor is yours. Start from the beginning, please, and share your story.
Okay. So I met my now ex-husband when I was 19 years old. So I was very young. We dated a couple of years and I married him at age 21. And basically, I married a narcissist. I had no idea that he was a narcissist. I definitely saw things I didn't like, red flags early on that, I just swept under the rug. This was back, 3 decades ago when no one was really, of course, no one was talking about narcissistic
Right.
abuse. I had never heard of, I didn't really know what a narcissist was. And what I did know of it certainly didn't, look like what my husband was. And
Right.
so I just didn't, I didn't, people weren't talking about psychological abuse. If you heard about domestic abuse, it was always physical. So it was easy to sweep these little things under the rug. I see lack of empathy and just this general cold, uncaring person who does not seem to be capable of making a connection. But that just, I wrote it off as a personality quirk, and it wasn't physical. And so I said, well, I guess this is just how it is. And for a lot of years, that was the mindset that I had. And it took many, many years for me to realize that, hey, this isn't okay, and to really start doing some independent research and understanding what was going on, and that I was quite literally married to someone with narcissistic personality disorder. I just I didn't understand that it was really not okay until I finally let myself ask those questions, and I had to get honest with myself, really. There's a lot to unpack there. There's the level of embarrassment. How have I stayed for this long, and what do I tell people? How do I explain, that this was really a toxic relationship? But yeah, I really stayed here for 29 years. So there's a lot that goes into figuring out how do I untangle this, and how do I remove myself from this marriage that has lasted for a long time and produced two children. And so, yeah, it was definitely a journey. I'm very happy to say that I'm out. I'm free from that, and yeah, I'm just working now to rebuild my life.
Do you think that someone married to a narcissist or in a relationship can really be happy?
I honestly don't see how. You know, you basically, if you are with someone who's truly a narcissist, and I think, you know, I need to clarify that because narcissism is a term that's overused. A
Yes.
lot of times when we talk about narcissists, those people are not narcissists. Everyone has narcissistic traits. You know, it's part of what makes us human. But somebody who is just pompous, arrogant, overconfident, they're not a narcissist. It runs much, much deeper than that. If you're really with a narcissist, this is someone who has a diagnosable personality disorder. This is someone who is most likely never going to change. This is who they are. Um, they don't have empathy. They cannot self-reflect or see things from your perspective, and you will be more or less required to give up your life for them. So I really can't see how anyone can be happy, you know, living within those parameters. I mean, if you really want to give up who you are and lose yourself to make somebody else happy, you know, you can tell yourself you're happy. And I did that for a lot of years. But I think at your root, at your core, I don't think that you can be happy. No. The journey of, you know, trying to free myself from this, like I say, was rooted a lot in self-education. And I can recall staying up late at night, you know, after everyone had gone to bed, and just getting out my computer and researching this. You know, what is wrong in this marriage? There's something isn't right. And toward the last probably 3 years, I was struggling with a lot of health issues. These were stress-induced health issues. I was having chronic pain, stomach aches, headaches, anxiety attacks. And I really felt like this was not sustainable. I could not continue to live under this amount of pressure. Being with a narcissist, you know, to say that you walk on eggshells every day is kind of an understatement. You basically live in a state of fight or flight, which, you know, we get into those states, but with the narcissist, you kind of stay in that state, and our bodies just are not meant for that. The stress will get to you. And so that's really, I think, the breakdown of my physical body is what prompted me to start trying to figure this out. And when I started learning about narcissism, you know, it answered every question I ever had. And suddenly my whole entire marriage had made sense. So
So,
that was a big thing.
so in particular, maybe, and also in general, how do narcissists treat their children?
That's really interesting. You know, I think in general, and realize narcissism is a spectrum disorder. So, you know, you can be less narcissistic or more. At the very end of the spectrum would be sociopath. And then beyond
Okay.
that would be psychopath. So, depending on where you fall in that spectrum, it's interesting. Narcissists are jealous of anything that takes attention away from them.
Right,
And
right,
so when our kids were born, you know, he loves the idea of having kids. He loves how his kids can make him look. So
right.
he wants to appear Father of the Year. He's so wonderful. His kids love him so much. It's all about how they can reflect on him. But as far as day-to-day life, I mean, in my case, my now ex-husband was a terrible parent. The worst of the worst. I was basically a single mom. You know, they don't want any inconvenience. They don't want anything getting in their way, and they certainly don't want anything or anybody taking attention away from them. So in my house, it was a constant battle of basically spreading myself too thin. You know, I needed to be the mom my kids needed, but then he would make me feel guilty about spending too much time with my kids or giving my kids too much attention. So it was a push and pull all the time, and it, you know, it really affected the kind of mom that I was able to be.
I never heard that before. I really appreciate you saying that because I wondered about that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Me-
and you know, I think my kids, you know, they didn't have a normal relationship with their father that most kids do. They never were close to him. He's not somebody that can really form connections. And so there was not a closeness, and I think while my kids have a dad, I think they missed out on so much because they didn't have, the dad that I wished that they could have had. Again, it was all about him, and the kids kind of learn to fall in line with that, and they learn early on that it's all about dad, and if dad's not happy, no one's happy. So yeah, it's all they knew, and it's hindsight is 2020. I wish
Right.
I had gotten them out, years and years ago, but I didn't.
But what makes a narcissist? Is it hereditary? Is it because their father was, or their mother, or is it a developing character? What makes a narcissist?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I'm not sure anybody really knows. I mean, I think
Right.
studies are showing that, no one is born with NPD. I mean, I don't think it's like rooted in your DNA. I think that it's something that evolves. It's interesting, one common thread that is found in people who are diagnosed with NPD, which is not a lot of people because, to be agreed to be tested, you have to admit there's something wrong
Right.
with you, which narcissists don't do. But the one common thread they find in narcissistic people is some form of neglect in their childhood. And oftentimes these people have been emotionally neglected. They did not get the emotional attachment that they needed or the emotional attention that they needed as a child. Basically their emotional needs were not met. And certainly my ex-husband falls into this category. Um, his father was not, would not have been diagnosed a narcissist at all, but he had narcissistic traits, pretty strong ones. So definitely he saw that modeled, but I think more than that, it was a matter of his emotional needs not being met. And then, these people will kind of put up walls. And this NPD sort of evolves as a way to, they feel, protect themselves from being hurt. So it's a very interesting kind of study to dive into, but that does seem to be the one common thread.
Well, am I glad I asked that question because I've often wondered about that and you answered it so well. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Anything else? Go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, I did start doing all this research and trying to understand what all of this was. And we it was pretty interesting. While at the time that I was doing this research and trying to piece all of this together, my husband suggested that we go to marriage counseling, which is interesting. Narcissists, I didn't know at the time, but they love to go to therapy. It
Oh,
is
really?
just, they love it. It is another way to manipulate, to get what they want, to, they're good. They're master manipulators. So I agreed to go to therapy with him. We were, literally in the last year of our marriage at this point. And that was a very eye-opening experience. Basically, we saw this therapist probably about 10 sessions. And each session we would sit on her couch and he would do all the talking. And I noticed, she really kind of took a lot of time. She asked some probing questions but she took a lot of time to just observe our dynamic. And I would say probably about session number 9 or thereabouts, she asked us a very peculiar question, and I didn't understand why she was asking, but she said, "I want you guys to each take a turn and tell me what's on your bucket list." So it was his turn first, and he talked and talked and talked, and he went on and on. I mean, his bucket list is so long, you wouldn't believe it. Everywhere he wanted to travel, what he wanted to do. Finally, she had to cut him off and say, "Okay, you've got a long list." And then she gets to me and she said, "What's on your bucket list?" And I literally sat and I stared at her and I could not think of one thing. And my answer was, I said, "I don't know." Because I truthfully did not know. And she was trying to help me. She said, "Well, is there somewhere you'd like to travel?" And I said, I don't know. And she said, "Well, what are your goals?" I said, I don't think I have any. And the reason she asked that, I think, was, she was suspecting that this was the dynamic, that, there was narcissistic abuse. And it really opened my eyes to
Uh,
realize I don't know. I don't know who I am. Like, I have no idea. And the therapist saw that as well. And once she sort of figured all of this out herself, she ultimately kicked my husband out of therapy and asked him not to come back. She said, I can't help you, you know. And it's sad, but most of the time these people can't be helped. And one of the worst things you can do as a partner of a narcissist is go to therapy with them. And fortunately, this therapist knew that, and yeah, she asked him not to come back. She said, "I can't help you. Good luck." So it was a definitely an eye-opening experience.
And how long before you took steps?
I mean, within months of that, I ended up meeting with her again on my own by myself in secret. And she told me, I said, I don't know what's going on. I don't think I want to be in this marriage anymore. And she told me, she said, you need to leave. And fortunately, that gave me the validation that I needed. I think a professional telling me it's okay to leave. I think I was looking for permission.
Right.
And when she told me, you need to go, like, this is not going to get better. It really did give me the nudge I needed to make that step and walk away.
And how old were the children when you did that?
They were like 18 and 22.
Oh
So,
my goodness.
grown. I mean, they're grown, right? And that
Right.
was also one consideration, I think, earlier on. I had thought about leaving. I could not fathom a way that I could ever get away from him, though.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the issue of the kids, right? I don't want to share custody of my kids. I don't want to go to family court with this man. Um, and so that was one thing, the kids were no longer minors, and it just helped me, make
Right.
that decision that, yeah, now is the time. If I'm going to walk away, this is the time to do it.
And when do you think way back in the beginning, when were you first aware of what you were dealing with, that he was a narcissist?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. With narcissism, the typical chain of events, it starts out with love bombing and they act like you're so wonderful and, all the gifts and attention and they seem too good to be true and they are. And then it slowly evolves from there. Once they've got you hooked, then they can start the manipulating, the gaslighting, and so it wasn't an overnight thing, but I think the first thing I can remember that I thought, wow, this is really strange was the first time shortly after we were married and I got sick. I don't know if I had the flu, something like that. And instead of being sympathetic or empathetic, his reaction was to be angry. And anytime I was sick or anything was wrong in our marriage, he was angry. And I thought, well, how strange. Like, shouldn't he be sympathetic? But never,
Yeah.
because you see, that was an inconvenience to him. How dare you get sick,
Right.
that inconveniences my day. So definitely that was probably the first red flag that I saw. Again, wrote it off as a personality quirk, thought, well, I'll just have to learn to deal with it. And I did.
How long ago was that you left?
So I left, it's been about 4 years now. But it took me a year after leaving before I filed for divorce.
Oh,
Seems,
really?
seems
Okay.
seems like a long time. If I had it to do over again, uh, I would not have made that decision. Again, hindsight's 2020. I was in therapy for a year, weekly therapy for a year, before I could kind of get it together enough to file those divorce papers. I was petrified, of what his reaction would be. The whole time that I was gone, he and his mind thought, she's coming back. She just needs a break. She's having a little midlife crisis. It's all fine. She's coming back. No way she's going to leave me. So, yeah, I was petrified of filing divorce papers. I didn't know what his reaction would be. The problem with waiting so long, and everyone told me this and I didn't listen, was it gave him a lot of time to plan. So
Mhm.
when I finally did file those papers, even though he was certain I was coming back, he's one that is never caught off guard. And, he had made all sorts of financial plans and arrangements, and it gave him a lot of time to move assets around and really work things to his advantage. Basically, he had a year to do this. Not the best move on my part, but it took me a year to gain the confidence I needed to file those papers. And then the
Wow.
divorce was another year. So very lengthy process.
We're going to take a quick 30-second break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about a couple things. Your book, for one, and also what people can do if they find themselves in this position. So we'll be right back.
Carol Graham would like to show you the path from misery to miraculous triumph in her fast-paced memoir, Battered Hope. She relates her determination to succeed as someone who experienced one horrendous nightmare after another. Gang raped and left for dead, loss of a child, husband falsely imprisoned, and cancer. Nothing could break her tenacity or faith. No matter what you face, heartache, loss, suffering, or injustice, Carol will illustrate how she became a victor the same way you can. The secret is to never, ever give up hope. Order your copy at Amazon or batteredhope.blogspot.com.
We've been talking with Mia Hanks about what it's like to be married to a narcissist, what some of the signs are, what you may, as a victim of narcissism, go through. And now we're going to switch gears a little bit. And we're going to talk about, first of all, her book, and also some tips that Mia has for those who may be stuck in a relationship where they are connected with a narcissist. And when I say that, Mia, I think it's also can be in a business relationship as well. Is that not true?
Yeah, I mean, I think any relationship, yeah, a parent relationship, a business relationship, a friend, a spouse, definitely, across the board.
So address that first, maybe a little bit. What somebody can do if they find themselves not just in a marital relationship, but in a situation like that. Maybe some of the signs which you've kind of covered already, but also what you can do and what you should do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the best thing you can do is to educate yourself on this personality disorder. I mean, it's important to understand how these people function. Because if you don't understand it, it's easy to get caught up in it, you know? It's easy to get caught up in the manipulation. These are, these can be some really smart people. And so I think education, knowing understanding narcissism is in this day and age, I think is the best thing, if you think that you're dealing with one. When I was I guess toward the end of my marriage, when I was doing so much research into narcissism, I was trying to read everything I could find, and most of what I found, great information, but it seemed to all be written by therapists and psychologists.
Oh,
And I really, it was very academic. And I was really seeking a firsthand account. I want to hear somebody else's story. I want to see how it stacks up next to mine. But I really couldn't find that. And so after my divorce was final, I got this idea that, maybe I should write a memoir. I had been in therapy for a year, and it just seemed like something that I was ready to do. And I felt like putting a firsthand account out there might be extremely helpful for other people who are in these relationships, to kind of see and identify. And, maybe it would give other people some validation to say, yeah, I think I can leave too. So that's really how the book came about. And yeah, I just hope it lands in the right hands of people who need to read it.
and how did he react to that?
How did he react to my book?
Yes.
He doesn't know about my book.
Okay.
Not yet. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it's a little unnerving. But no, to date, he doesn't know about it. And
And what about your children? Did they have a new understanding of, everything that had been happening in their lives up to that point?
yeah, they really did. My son has not read the book, but knows about it. And we've had a lot of discussions about dad and why
Right.
he's the way he is and so on and so forth. My daughter has read the book, and yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it helped her see things from my perspective in kind of a new way that she hadn't considered. And it also, there's a lot of my story that I share that my kids never knew. A
Oh,
lot that went on that they never knew about. And so I think that, it was eye-opening and definitely gave her a better understanding of who her dad was, which she already had a pretty good idea. But
right.
yeah, I think it was interesting for her to hear it from my point of view.
And is it strictly a memoir, or do you talk about the therapy and other things as well?
So it's a memoir, and then sprinkled in, I do put in tips and little like checklists and some some academic information, things like that. But mostly it is a memoir, an insider point of view from actual day-to-day life with a narcissist, with a covert narcissist specifically.
Now, you said in the beginning that some people think that they're either married to one or they know one, but there a distinct definition between somebody who may just has some sort of other personality disorder than what an actual narcissist is?
Yeah, there is. So there is actually a DSM category, a DSM like trait list, and I believe there are 9 traits. And if you have 5 or more, I think it's 5 or more. It could be 6, but if you have 5 or more, then that would warrant a diagnosis by a professional, of course, of narcissistic personality disorder. All of those traits, right off the top of my head, I can't think of them all, but a few are they see themselves as more important than everyone else. They believe that other people are jealous of everything they have. They only want to associate themselves with important people. They lack empathy, of course. And those are kind of the traits. They will step on other people to get what they want. There are 9 traits, like I say, and I would say of the 9, my ex-husband is sitting somewhere around the 8. Has solid 7, possibly 8 of those. So, yeah, it's definite. Any person who is able to diagnose he would definitely be diagnosed as
In
such.
your in your research, did you ever come across anybody that was a narcissist that chose to change and did?
No, actually, no. The problem is they don't think there's anything wrong with them.
Right.
What they think, and this is so in line with my ex-husband, they believe they do see themselves as different, but what they see is that there's something wrong with everybody else. It's not them, it's you. So, they just wouldn't, by nature, they would never say, I think there's something wrong with me. I think I should change. I mean, that just goes against their core beliefs. They think everybody else needs to change, and that was the basically the theme of my nearly 30 years of marriage was you, meaning me, need to change. There was never any change that he thought he needed to make. So no, I mean, I guess if they are able to ask themselves, "Am I a narcissist?" They probably are not.
I guess the choice would be in that situation, do you stay and live with it or do you leave? And if you choose to leave, is there a factor of abuse or is that a just a fear or does it actually play out?
That was my fear, and it remains my fear. Narcissists, they don't take no for an answer. That is not how they work. That's not in their playbook. They don't get discarded. And so when they do, you kind of have to worry about the fallout. And I do. I do worry about it a little bit. Um, I have no contact with him, none whatsoever. Don't see him, don't talk to him, you know. We do share children, obviously, but our kids are grown. And but even so, even though he doesn't see me, he doesn't have access to me, he will try to make my life difficult wherever he can. So it's sort of, you know, it stays in my head that, he's always going to be trying to get at me, even though, we don't have contact. So I don't think a narcissist will ever let it go. And that is one thing I think to be knowledgeable of, when you are leaving somebody like this. They kind of don't ever let it go.
Did he remarry?
He's actually engaged. He got into a relationship almost immediately. I would say, just super, super fast. Narcissists do that. It's very typical. They need supply. They can't be on their own. They need someone who supplies them with, oh my goodness, you're so great, you're so wonderful. They almost need, they just need that, no, that notoriety. And so, yeah, he got into a relationship very quickly and got engaged very quickly. So yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
So after someone has realized that they are in a relationship with a narcissist and they want to take steps and they're working out the fear of, taking those steps, any advice you can give in any area?
Yeah, I mean, it is scary to think about leaving a narcissist. These people are, they can become volatile, you know, when pushed so far. One thing you have to know is that narcissists as a whole, they do not change. It's not going to get better. I kept hanging in there saying, well, you know, maybe in the next stage of our life, retirement's coming up, maybe the kids are getting older, maybe his stress level will decrease, things will get better. It will not get better. I think that you have to get honest and say, this is how it's going to be. It is not going to get better. He is never going to wake up one day and say, I think I'll be nice today. It's not going to happen. And so my advice would be start making those preparations, start making those plans to get out, because you still have your life ahead of you, whether you've been in this marriage for 5 years or 30 years, you've got time left. And I just would tell people, don't waste time thinking this person's going to change, because they're just not.
And do you recommend therapy?
Oh, definitely. I think that was huge. When I left, I sought out a therapist, and it's really helpful if you can find a therapist who is knowledgeable in the topic of narcissism. That really did help me. And yeah, I think, therapy is not, it's not a magic cure. You're not going to emerge fully healed, but I think it's a great starting point, and I think it kind of sets you up for healing. It sort of gets you started in the right direction. So definitely therapy.
Now, the name of your book, where it can be purchased, and anything you would like to share about it.
Yeah, it's called Bridemaid, a memoir. And it's available online at basically everywhere books are sold. Amazon, I think it's on Barnes and Noble, Target, Walmart. Um, it's available in ebook format and paperback. And then also I have a website, miajhanks.com. And on the website, there is a link to Amazon to purchase the book.
And what do you do in the website?
On the website, so I have the book link. I have some information about narcissism in general. I have links to podcasts, and I have a blog. So yeah,
Okay.
check it out. Check it out. And
Okay.
there is in the works a second book in the works.
I was
So
just, that was my next question. And
yeah,
what is that book? Can you just share what that book's going to be about?
that book is going to kind of pick up where the first one leaves off, and from my divorce onward, what happened next? I get that question a lot in podcasts. When I wrote the first book, I had absolutely no intention of writing again. I didn't think I had anything else to share. Everything, my story was in that book.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done a lot of podcasts, and the hosts will often ask, "Then what? Then you left, and then what happened?"
Right.
And I've realized, well, yeah, there's a story. There's a story there after I left, and just learning to rebuild, and figuring life out by myself. So yeah, that's in the works. No release date, but it's coming.
That's good. Well, this has been extremely informative. And as you're talking, I'm thinking of certain people, and I think that is going to be generally what the audience will do. And unless they're thinking about themselves, that would even be better, right?
It would be. It would not likely, but yeah.
Exactly. So I really thank you for what you shared, and I made lots of notes, and I'm looking forward to sharing this with the world. So the end closing, is there anything that I didn't ask you or that you would like to share, or any word of encouragement, or whatever you would like to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think I would just, that's kind of my closing words would be that, it's very daunting to think about leaving a relationship with a narcissist, especially if it's been a lengthy relationship. It's easy to feel stuck, and I think, I would just like people to know you're, even though it feels that way, you're not stuck. You're never stuck. There are options, and there's help out there. There are resources. There are people that can help you, and just don't stay because you think you're stuck.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you so much, Mia, for being on Never
Thank you for
Ever.
having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Never Ever Give Up Hope, featuring Carol Graham. Did you know that most people succeed because they are determined to? Quitting was never an option. Carol loves your comments and will respond to each one. So please subscribe and review this podcast. A rating of 5 stars would be outstanding and appreciated. Remember, if you are still here, there is always hope.
Hi, this is Carol Graham with Praying for Miracles with Carol. I want to extend a special invitation to all of you or any of you who have not yet joined us for the Pray the Answer webinar. We meet by Zoom every other Thursday, and the subjects that we discuss I know will be of interest to you. The comments that we are receiving are absolutely mind-blowing for me personally, how lives are being changed as a result of having the opportunity to discuss things that maybe there's no other platform out there that are discussing them. And because you have an opportunity at that point to ask your questions, we can interact from any place in the world. And they are usually an hour long, but if we have more questions and we have time, there's no time limit, and we will extend it to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to ask the questions regarding the subject that we're talking about. And I look forward to seeing you. I thank you for your support. And just to give you a little rundown of some of the subjects that we have covered or are going to cover, would be the subject of praise. This is huge, and understanding how praise affects us in every area of our spiritual walk. Things like fear, things like conviction of the Holy Spirit. What is the difference between faith and hope? How often do I need to confess my sins? What is a doer of the word? What does that mean? And one subject that we probably will cover in different areas is New Age and how it is creeping into the church. How do we recognize it? What do we do about it? Another subject is the law versus grace, another area where a lot of Christians do not understand how to walk in grace and not be walking in condemnation and guilt under the law. So these are just a few of the subjects. Also, you have an opportunity to not only ask your questions about what we're discussing, but share if there are other things that you would like to talk about in the future. So I look forward to seeing you. Just go to prayingmiracles.com. This is a free webinar. There is no charge for you. And also, if you share it with your friends, that would be great, and I appreciate that as well. So we'll see you at prayingmiracles.com. All you have to do is register, and you will be part of our group. Thank you.
Feeling stuck in your prayer life? You're not alone. Join Pray the Answer webinar led by prayer coach Carol Graham. Each session will help you shift from fear to faith and from worry to worship. Learn how to pray God's word and receive real answers. Visit prayingmiracles.com to register today.